Elena looks at the red light in the ICU. Her child is fighting for his life. Then the phone rings. Are you still going to the birthday party? The room was too cold for a California morning. The fluorescent ceiling light hummed, its rhythm sharp and constant, as if mocking the rhythm of the heart monitor beside her son. Elena sat hunched in a hospital chair, her sweater half fallen off one shoulder, dark circles digging under her eyes. Her hands trembled slightly as she stroked Milo's bandaged hand, which was warm, but still, frighteningly still. He had always been full of energy. A whirlwind in sneakers. 7 years old and never walked when he could run. But now his body lay inert, a tangle of IV tubes and wires. The doctor said, bacterial meningitis. The words echoed in her head like a curse she couldn't unhear. She had been by his side for 24 hours straight. The phone buzzed. She jumped. She reached for it, half hoping it was Dr. Park. But no, it was Veronica. She hesitated, then answered. Elena, her sister's voice snapped. Are you still coming? Everything's starting in an hour. Elena blinked. Veronica, I'm at the hospital. Milo's not doing well. I know, Veronica replied. But it's my birthday. Just for an hour, can you show your face? Everyone else is already here. It'll look weird. Elena glanced at the red light blinking outside the ICU room. He's unconscious, V. They said it might reach his brain. Veronica exhaled into the phone. Look, I'm sorry, but you've been using Milo as a reason to isolate yourself for months now. Maybe this is why you're feeling so alone. Elena didn't respond. I always make everything revolve around myself and my child. Veronica continued, voice tight with irritation. Sometimes I don't even know what family is anymore. But I show up. That's the point. The line went dead. Elena stared at the phone, her mind numb. A second later, a message appeared. It's my day. Can you come over for an hour? She blinked back tears, then turned her gaze to Milo. His lips were pale, his chest rising slowly under the thin white sheet. The quiet was broken again by a short buzz. This time it was her mother, Vivian. Your sister is right. Family is more than just a child. The words knocked the air out of her. Vivian had barely visited since Milo was admitted, choosing instead to post photos from brunches and yoga sessions. To them, today was a celebration. To her, it was a cliff she was clinging to with bloody fingers. She rose and paced outside the ICU, her footsteps echoing against the linoleum. Her phone felt heavy in her hand. For a second, she thought about throwing it into the wall. Was this what family meant to them? Performance over presence? Masks over love? She remembered being 10, watching Veronica get everything she asked for. Dresses, recitals, private lessons. Elena had learned to clap, to disappear. But this time she had a child, and disappearing was not an option. Her eyes filled again, this time with something angrier than grief. Dr. Park appeared down the hallway, walking toward her quickly. Elena, he said gently, can we talk for a moment? Her throat closed. Is it? Milo's condition is unstable. If the inflammation doesn't respond to the new round of antibiotics within the next 6 hours, we may have to operate. On the brain. Elena pressed her back to the wall. No, she whispered. Oh God, no. The room spun. Her knees buckled slightly, and she reached out, gripping the chair rail to stay upright. Dr. Park laid a hand on her shoulder. We'll do everything we can, but I need your consent on these documents. We can't delay. She nodded mechanically, tears hot on her face. Back inside the ICU, she clutched Milo's hand, whispering through clenched teeth. Please, baby, stay with me. You're the only thing that's real. The nurse adjusted the IV. Outside, the clouds were shifting. Light filtered into the room like a half-forgotten prayer. Then another buzz. Her phone. She didn't want to look. But she did. If you don't come, I'll erase you from the family. Veronica. Elena opens an old gift box from her late father. Inside is a birthday card from Veronica 20 years ago. and the only card with her name cut off is the corner. The cardboard felt fragile under her fingers, its edges softened by time. She hadn't opened this box since her father's funeral. Now, in the soft light of her apartment at noon, the hospital bracelet on her wrist still clung to her skin, reminding her of where she belonged, of who needed her most. She had come home for a few moments, just long enough to shower, grab Milo's favorite blanket, and return. But the sight of that familiar box on the shelf, slightly askew, had drawn her in like gravity. Inside, memories blinked up at her. Concert stubs, pressed flowers, the faded scent of tobacco from her father's old pipe. And then, oddly placed, an old birthday card from Veronica. The date read, June 2003. She unfolded it slowly. Glitter stars, dramatic loops in purple pen. To the best sister ever. Hope you stay out of my closet this year. Love, V. But the card's top right corner had been crudely cut out. Her name. Gone. She stared at the mutilated edge, a quiet pressure building behind her eyes. A cutout name, like a cutout person. It wasn't just a card. It was a pattern. She remembered the first time they'd cropped her out of a family photo. A barbecue in 2016. Her belly round with Milo, hair tied up in desperation, a floral dress because nothing else fit. Veronica had whispered something to their mother, and the photo that later surfaced on Facebook was neatly zoomed, conveniently slicing Elena away. You didn't match the color theme, their mother had said, as if that explained it. The hum of her phone broke the silence. An email notification. From Veronica. Subject: a friendly reminder. Your family has sacrificed a lot for you. Today is your time to give back. I'm expecting you. She didn't respond. The phone buzzed again. Her mother. Elena. Vivian's voice came through, clipped and smooth. Don't let your sister down again. She's waited all year for this. She rented the entire vineyard, and you've been absent too long. Absent? I'm in the middle of a health crisis, Elena said quietly. You always have some crisis. The line went dead. She gripped the phone tighter. Not anger, not grief, just blankness. The kind that happens when your body forgets how to react. Her breath caught when a soft ding lit the screen again. This time, a text from Aunt Ruth. Elena, you're doing the right thing. They don't know what you're going through. And they don't want to. Ruth. The only one who hadn't tried to make Elena feel like a burden. A quiet voice of reason behind closed doors. Elena turned back to the box, now half spilled onto the floor. Among the disheveled papers, a small leather-bound notebook caught her eye. She flipped through pages of her father's handwriting. Notes about gardening, recipes, quotes. Then something fell from the spine. A folded letter, yellowed and fragile. She unfolded it delicately. It was addressed to her, never mailed. Elena, I don't say this often enough, and maybe I never will. But you are more than what they try to make you believe. You've always been the one who saw through the noise. If the world ever turns against you, don't let anyone define you. Not even family. Dad. Her hands trembled. Her father had never been loud, never combative. But he had loved with a kind of quiet depth that stayed buried until needed most. She grabbed her phone, scrolled to the voice recording app. Hit record. This is Elena Calloway, she began, her voice steadier than she felt. And this is what I've been silent about for too long. She played back the voicemail from her mother, then the email, then read the letter out loud. For herself, for Milo, for the version of her that had once tried to cut her own name back into a birthday card. As she saved the file, something fluttered loose from the notebook again. A second card, half tucked between pages. It was a store-bought Father's Day card. She opened it, and there, scrawled at the bottom in her father's familiar hand, was the line that would stay with her forever. Don't let anyone define you. Milo is not awake yet. But Elena is still wearing a dress, carrying her father's letter and the USB containing Veronica's voice recording. The air was thick with lavender-scented perfume and clinking glasses as Elena stepped into the garden of Veronica's villa. It was early evening, and the sun had begun its descent behind the hills of Napa Valley, casting long golden shadows over the white linen tables and flower arrangements that surrounded the polished marble patio. Laughter rippled across the crowd. Cousins she hadn't seen in years, colleagues of Veronica's she barely recognized, and a string quartet gently tuning in the background. Elena adjusted the hem of her dark navy dress, one of the only things in her closet that didn't feel like it belonged to a different life. She clutched the slim USB in one hand and her father's folded letter in the other. Milo's hospital bracelet was still on her wrist. Veronica spotted her from across the courtyard. Her champagne glass paused midair. Then, with a quick smile that didn't reach her eyes, she floated over. "Elena, you came," she said. Her tone caught somewhere between annoyance and triumph. "Didn't expect that. Are things better?" Elena didn't answer. She looked around. The garden was full. Aunts, uncles, former neighbors. And Vivian, in pale pink silk, standing under a parasol with a tight smile that Elena had known her whole life. "I'm not staying long," Elena said, calm and level. "But I do need to say something." Veronica blinked. "Now?" "Yes, right now." Her sister hesitated, then waved a hand dismissively. "Fine. A toast from the black sheep. Let's see what the single mother has to share." Elena stepped up to the patio's center, near the cake table. Conversations tapered off. Some people sipped their drinks faster. Others leaned in. She unfolded the letter. "This was written by my father," she began. "I found it yesterday. It was never mailed, but it was meant for me." A hush settled. He wrote, "You are more than what they try to make you believe. If the world ever turns against you, don't let anyone define you. Not even family." She paused. A bird chirped somewhere beyond the fence. "I know many of you believe I'm difficult, dramatic, the one who broke away. But I want you to hear what's never been said." She held up the USB. "This contains a voicemail my sister left me. Her voice. Her words." She played it from her phone. "If you don't come, I'll erase you from the family." A few people gasped. "And this isn't the first time," Elena continued. "I was cropped out of photos, left out of plans, shamed for being pregnant, told I embarrassed this family." Her gaze fell on her mother. Vivian stared back, expression blank. "I understand that being a single mother isn't easy to accept in some circles," Elena said, her voice tightening. "But Milo, my son, he's fighting for his life, right now. And I was told that missing this party meant I'd lose my place in this family." A murmur began to swell through the crowd. Some looked away. A cousin bit her lip. "Maybe you're right," Elena said. "Maybe I don't belong. If you think being a single mother is a sin, then I'll accept living outside this circle." She turned to Veronica, who stood arms folded, an icy grin still on her face. Veronica raised an eyebrow. "Then go." Elena breathed in slowly. "I'm leaving, for the last time." And with that, she turned her back on the marble courtyard, the polished smiles, and the curated life she had never been allowed to live in. She stepped past the guests, who now parted like a tide. Aunt Ruth gave her a small nod of solidarity. Others avoided her eyes. As Elena reached the gate, a hand touched her shoulder. Light. Familiar. She turned. Julian Mercer stood there, slightly older, but unmistakably him. His voice was gentle. "Wait, you're not alone." Julian looks deep into Elena's eyes. "I was wrong to leave, but this time I'll stay, if you let me." The cafe smelled faintly of coffee and damp leaves. Outside, rain traced soft lines down the window panes, each droplet melting into the next, like thoughts too heavy to stay separate. Elena sat curled in the corner booth, her coat still damp around the cuffs, her eyes fixed on the phone beside her untouched cup. Julian sat across from her. The soft overhead light caught the curve of his jaw, the tiredness under his eyes. For the first time in years, he looked like someone who had lived with guilt as a constant companion. "I was wrong to leave," he said, voice low but steady. "But this time I'll stay, if you let me." Elena held his gaze for a moment before glancing away, toward the rain beyond the glass. Part of her wanted to believe it. Part of her wanted to feel something. Relief, anger, closure. But she just felt hollow. Or maybe too full. "You said nothing," she whispered. "All those years. Nothing." "I know. When Milo was born, when he was learning to walk, to speak, you missed all of it." Julian ran his fingers through his hair, wet strands clinging to his temple. "I didn't think I was good enough," he said. "I had just lost everything. My company, my apartment, my dignity. You were pregnant and strong, and God, I was terrified." "And so you just disappeared?" Elena's voice cracked. "You thought that was better than trying?" Number I thought it was less cruel than failing you up close. They sat in silence, broken only by the occasional hiss of the espresso machine and the clatter of distant plates. Elena's mind circled back to all the nights Milo had asked, "Why don't I have a dad like the other kids?" And how she'd smiled and said, "You have me." "I told myself I didn't need anyone," she said quietly, "that I was used to living like this." Julian nodded. "And you've done an incredible job. Elena, I'm not here to take credit or demand anything. I just want to be here, if there's still a place for me." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. The name lit up her screen. Dr. Park. She picked up, pulse quickening. "Elena?" Dr. Park's voice came gently but firm. "I wanted to let you know. Milo's stabilized. We're past the danger zone. He's responding to treatment. He'll need rest, probably weeks of observation, but it's good news." Elena closed her eyes, her free hand flying to her mouth. "Thank you," she whispered. When she hung up, the weight of days pressed down all at once. Her shoulders slumped forward, and she buried her face in her arms on the table. She didn't cry. She didn't have to. The release came in silence. Julian reached across and gently took her hand. "You're not alone anymore," he said. Elena didn't pull away. Not this time. Her phone buzzed again. She assumed it might be Dr. Park with another update. But the preview text froze her, from Veronica. "I don't need you anymore, but I won't let Milo destroy this family image." Her breath hitched. The warmth of the moment cooled. She stared at the screen, then slowly looked back at Julian, her voice barely audible. "She's not done." Elena finds an old recording. Veronica once tricked her into signing a waiver from her grandfather's inheritance. Rain drummed gently on the windows of the small apartment, now filled with the quiet rhythm of healing. Milo lay curled on the couch, finally sleeping soundly without monitors beeping around him. Julian was in the kitchen, brewing tea. The scent of chamomile mingled with the scent of rain-soaked pavement outside. Elena sifted through the box Aunt Ruth had brought earlier. The old woman had arrived unannounced that morning, her eyes weary but kind, clutching a canvas bag as if it were made of glass. "He would have wanted you to have this," Ruth had said simply, placing the bundle in Elena's arms. "Your grandfather. He knew things weren't right, but he didn't have time to fix them." Now, seated at the coffee table while Julian washed dishes behind her, Elena carefully peeled back layers of envelopes, clippings, and brittle documents. Her fingers paused on a folder marked in her grandfather's neat script. For Elena, only her. Inside, she found a thick manila envelope containing a USB drive, a voice recorder, and a sealed draft of his will. Her heart pounded. She plugged the USB into her laptop. At first, static. Then Veronica's voice, clear and chilling. "If you love your family, then sign it. Money will only cause division. We'll make sure you and the baby are cared for, but the house, the shares, they need to stay with people who know what to do with them." A pause. Then her own voice, younger, hesitant. I don't understand all this, but okay, I trust you. Julian turned at the sound, drying his hands slowly. Is that you? Elena nodded, barely breathing. I thought it was just some formality. Veronica said Grandpa didn't want to deal with lawyers, that I was causing stress. She opened the second envelope. Inside, a will, dated 2 weeks before her grandfather's passing. And at the bottom, her signature. But the paragraph above it outlined her full waiver of any inheritance. The house, the vineyard shares, even the antique collection he had promised to divide equally. Julian sat beside her, leaning in. She manipulated you, he said quietly. This was never about family harmony. It was control. She made me feel like I was the one tearing things apart, Elena murmured, her voice shaking. And all this time I thought I had just misunderstood, that I was the one who walked away. She flipped to a notepaper clipped inside, a transcript from the voice recorder. Veronica again. She's going to be a problem, Mom. Once that kid grows up, she'll start asking questions. We need to get rid of her legally before Grandpa passes. Make it clean. Elena's hands clenched the edge of the paper. Her stomach turned. She had spent years blaming herself for not trying harder, not fitting in, not being good enough to be part of the Calloway name. And all along it had been a design. Julian took her hand. You don't need their money, he said. But you deserve your name. The truth, not for them, but for Milo. She looked over at her sleeping son, his face still pale but peaceful. I'm not going to sue, she said. I don't care about the money, but I won't let them keep pretending I'm the villain in this story. Just then, her phone lit up. A number she recognized but hadn't saved. The family's lawyer. She hesitated, then answered. Elena Calloway, she said. The voice on the other end was stiff, formal. Ms. Calloway, Veronica would like to see you, one last time, privately. The line clicked dead before she could respond. She stared at the screen, Julian watching her silently. She wants to meet, Elena said. Julian frowned. What does she want? I don't know, Elena whispered, but I think she knows I've remembered everything. If you want the truth, prepare to suffer the consequences, Veronica says, but this time Elena does not back down. The conference room smelled of old wood, ink, and ambition. Oil paintings of stoic men in waistcoats lined the walls. Calloway patriarchs long gone, their eyes frozen in judgment. A heavy rain tapped against the narrow window, muffled by thick drapes. Elena sat at the long mahogany table, upright and still, a folder placed before her like a quiet weapon. Across from her, Veronica lounged in a leather chair, arms folded, expression unreadable beneath layers of practiced poise. To her left sat Attorney Davis, sharp-featured, exact, his silver glasses catching every flicker of light. Julian was there too, behind Elena. He said nothing. He didn't have to. Veronica broke the silence first. You've certainly made an entrance these past few weeks. I'll give you that. Elena met her gaze without blinking. I didn't come to argue. I came to correct the record. A smile tugged at the corner of Veronica's lips, but it never reached her eyes. If you want the truth, prepare to suffer the consequences. Elena leaned forward slightly and opened the folder. 2 documents slid out. One the original will from her grandfather, entrusted by Aunt Ruth. The other, a heavily amended version on official letterhead bearing the firm's seal. Attorney Davis adjusted his glasses. Ms. Calloway, this version was never entered into probate. It was replaced without due process. Elena inserted the USB into the laptop already set on the table, waited a beat, and hit play. Veronica's voice spilled into the room. If you love your family, then sign it. Money will only cause division. Then, she's going to be a problem. We need to get rid of her legally. The audio ended. Silence followed. Veronica's fingers tapped the table slowly. That could be anyone's voice. Elena said nothing. She didn't need to. Davis cleared his throat. I authenticated this recording 2 days ago. The date stamps match. And the waiver document was signed under coercion, at best. Fraud at worst. Veronica laughed, sharp and hollow. So what? She's not suing. She just wants to make noise. Attention. Elena turned to Davis. I don't want money, she said. I don't want the land or the shares. I don't want to touch anything that still reeks of this family's control. Davis nodded. Understood. I want a signed statement, she continued, voice steady, confirming that I never renounced my inheritance of my own free will, that I was misled, and I want legal dissociation from Veronica and any Calloway-related assets, effective immediately. Veronica stood abruptly, her chair scraping across the tile. You want a letter? She snapped. You destroyed everything we built. Do you think that's enough? A letter won't fix what you've done to my image. I spent years cultivating it. You tore it down in weeks. Elena remained seated. No, she said softly. You did it yourself. I just turned on the lights. Veronica's chest rose and fell quickly, her fingers trembling against the table's edge. She looked at Davis, then at Julian, then back to Elena, but there was no one left to impress. Attorney Davis folded his hands. We'll prepare the documents by end of day. Elena gathered her folder and stood. She looked one last time at the oil paintings, those stern men with unreadable eyes. She wondered what they would say now. Then she turned away from them, from Veronica, from the legacy she no longer had to bear. Outside, the rain had stopped. Julian walked beside her in silence as they stepped into the afternoon light. The sky was still gray, but the air smelled clean. New. You okay? He asked quietly. Elena glanced down the street where cars passed and trees swayed, where Milo waited in their warm little apartment filled with second chances. I'm not the same woman who walked in there, she said, and I don't need them to be a Calloway anymore. She reached for Julian's hand. Let's go home. The letter arrived 2 days later. It came in a cream envelope, sealed with the emblem of Calloway and Finch LLP, the family's law firm. Elena didn't open it right away. She placed it on the corner of the kitchen table and watched it for hours, like a stray dog she wasn't sure she could trust. Milo was at the table too, scribbling spaceships and dinosaurs across a page, tongue sticking out in focus. His cheeks were round again, color returning slowly day by day. He still tired easily, but the shadows under his eyes had faded, and he laughed more often now. Julian was unpacking groceries behind her, humming a low tune that might have been off-key but settled in the air like a familiar scent. There was no tension between them anymore. Just small things, like how they moved around each other in the kitchen without stepping on each other's silence. Are you going to open that? Julian asked finally, nodding at the envelope. Elena took a deep breath. Yeah. She slid her finger under the seal, unfolded the letter carefully, and read the neat paragraphs. It was exactly what she asked for. No apology, of course, just a statement of fact. That she had signed the waiver without legal representation, that new evidence showed she had not been fully informed, and that she was now, in full, absolved of any obligation to the Calloway estate. At the bottom, a clause releasing her from any financial ties to Veronica or the family trust. Elena folded it back up. That was it. No drama. No last slap in the face. Just paper and ink. And a strange lightness in her chest. She didn't realize she'd been holding her breath until Julian touched her shoulder. That's the end of it? He asked. She looked at him. No, she said. That's the beginning. Later that night, after Milo had gone to sleep, curled beneath a blanket with rockets and moons, Elena stepped onto the small balcony, mug of tea in hand. The city hummed below, distant sirens, someone laughing down the block, the metallic rattle of a train 2 streets over. All of it felt real. She looked up at the sky. No stars tonight. Just clouds, thick and quiet. But she didn't mind. Julian joined her, his hoodie zipped halfway, hands stuffed in the pockets. "I've been thinking," she said after a moment. He didn't speak, just waited. "I'm going to change my name," she said. "Not back to my maiden name, not to yours, not Calloway. Just something new, something that's mine." Julian raised an eyebrow. "You've earned that." She sipped her tea. Elena Calloway was someone who kept waiting for approval, for a seat at the table. I don't want to be her anymore. He leaned against the railing beside her, quiet. "You don't have to explain, but whatever name you choose, I'll be proud to know it." She smiled, not out of politeness, but from somewhere rooted. In the days that followed, life didn't magically become perfect. There were medical bills, long days balancing work from home and caring for Milo, strange dreams that still visited her when the nights were especially silent. But there were also better things. Weekend walks to the bookstore, Milo's first drawings of a family that had 3 people instead of 2, the way Julian learned to braid her hair without making a mess of it. Aunt Ruth came by often, sometimes with soup, sometimes with photos of Elena's grandfather, young and rebellious, in pictures Veronica never bothered to keep. "You remind me of him more than anyone," Ruth said once, patting her hand. "He saw through the noise, too. That's why Veronica hated it. You had his backbone." Elena didn't reply then, but later, alone, she stared at her grandfather's face in the faded photo and whispered, "Thank you." One afternoon, while reorganizing the bookshelf in the apartment, she found something she hadn't seen in years. The rejection letter from an art program she once dreamed of attending, back when she was too afraid to apply seriously. She laughed. Then she opened a new tab on her laptop and searched for evening courses in digital illustration. That evening, she sat with Milo on the floor, drawing side by side. He sketched a volcano with dragons. She drew a woman standing at a cliff, arms outstretched, letting the wind take whatever was behind her. Julian came in and watched them for a while. "Is that you?" he asked, pointing to the woman in the drawing. Elena looked at the sketch. "No," she said, "but maybe one day." The woman they once tried to silence stood firm beneath the weight of years of betrayal. And this time, her voice was louder than their legacy. She didn't need revenge wrapped in wealth or recognition. Just the truth, finally spoken. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, even the most carefully built lies will crack beneath the light of honesty. Sometimes walking away is not surrender. It's liberation. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth. Like, share, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Type 1 if you felt seen in this story.